Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I have a review and product share of a few products. I'm combining these because I wanted to get them out before the end of the year in case anybody, I think these might be a limited edition, so if somebody was really interested in them, I would just want them to know about them so they could get them before they went away. And also because I use these products together in an artwork and I really like how it came out. So I'm going to show you that artwork really quickly here. This was a drawing I did of a glass nutcracker ornament that we have on our Christmas tree, and I just love the way these products work together. I started off with the alcohol markers, and then I went in with gouache, and then I did add some colored pencils on top, but these worked really well together, and it was also a good way for me to get the feel of how they worked and their quality and whatnot. So we're gonna do an overview of these products, and you can check it out yourself. So, and I have a photo of that on Instagram and on my blog if you want to see it, and there's a real-time version of that in Critique Club and a time-lapse on my YouTube channel, so you can find all of that. First thing I want to show you are the markers, because you may be already familiar with Arrtx markers. They have two different types of markers. They have the Arrtx Oros, which is the brush tip and chisel tip version, and they have the Arrtx Alp, which is their original marker. They have a white body, and they have a I just told them backwards though, and they have a chisel and a bullet. So the bodies are the same, the caps are the same, and just the tips that you get are a little bit different. So if I uncap, you can see. But the color range in all their sets are the same. So if you wanted a set of 80 markers, you'd be able to get the Alp set that had the bullet and chisel, or you'd be able to get the Oros set. And I could be pointing at the wrong ones, just FYI. They have the brush and the chisel tip. So if we compare them, you can see the only difference is that one has a brush and one has a bullet. Okay. They do have an odor. I don't find it to be really strong. You can see how that says Alp and that says Oros. I'll just turn that around there. They do have a bit of an odor. It's not enough to bother me, but I do want to mention that in case any sort of scents bother you. Now, these are new colors. These colors are not in the other sets. So if you are collecting these markers and you want to have all the colors, you can get these without duplicates. So that's kind of nice because they have set up their systems of color in a way that you can, there's a couple different ways you can collect the different markers without getting duplicates. So what I always recommend if somebody's interested in buying these markers is to start off with the 80 set, because that will give you a really good variety of colors. Then go to the 90 set, because then that gives you your super pastel tones and your deep tones and quite a few grays. And then I would say go for the skin tone set if you need more earth tones. I mean, if you don't do a lot of portraits, you probably will have enough earth tones between those two sets. But if you like to do portraits, you'll probably want to get the skin tone set. Now that will give you all the colors in the range, including the pastels and all of the individual, like they also had boxes of particular colors. Like you could get a box of purple markers, blue markers, gray markers. The gray marker box is really good, but you will have all those grays if you buy these three sets. Or if you buy these two sets, you're going to have all the grays. So I wouldn't recommend, you know, getting that gray set if you're going to get these as well. So they, in addition to having these three sets that will give you all the markers with no duplicates, with the exception of the new holiday ones, they also have packs of color families like yellows and reds and that sort of thing. So the color family packs are cheaper just because there's fewer markers in there, but you will end up with a lot of duplicate colorless blenders if you go that route. But if you've got, like, you know, 20 bucks a pop to spend or $25 a pop to spend, going with those individual color family boxes might be a good investment. And I would do the grays first if you were going to do that. But to save the most money, getting the 80 set, the 90 set, and the 36 skin tone set is your best bet. Now, the markers here's the color scheme they come in. You've got a deep red and a lighter red that's more warm. You've got a deeper blue and a lighter blue. You've got a earthier dark olive green, and you've got a lighter, more hunter green. You've got a dark brown with green undertones, and you've got a light brown with green undertones. You've got a darker neutral to warm yellow, and then you've got a fluorescent yellow. And you also get a gold and a silver. Now, something I want to mention about the gold and the silver is that they have absolutely no odor, which is really nice, because a lot of times when you're getting the metallic markers, they reek. You know, they're really, really strong. But these have absolutely no smell. They must be a water-based marker because they are just, they don't need to be shaken. You can see there's no balls in there. It's just a felt tip marker, and it will show up opaquely, especially the silver. The silver is very opaque. So let me just, there's the gold, there's the silver, so you can kind of see how they show up. Actually, let's do it on the side of this this box here. So on black, you can see it shows up really well. The gold isn't quite as opaque, but it's still relatively opaque. I probably wouldn't hang on to these markers too long. I'd probably use them because my experience with water-based metallic markers is that they tend to dry up quicker than other markers. So that's just something I would recommend if you're going to get one of these sets. Then, you know, you might want to go to town using these during the holidays, and just so to make sure you can get good use out of them. Because I don't know what it is about about water-based metallic markers. They just seem to dry out a lot quicker. Okay, so we've looked at the markers. I am going to show you a swatch here. Oh, you know what? I'll compare the swatches. So the numbers in this Christmas set, they all begin with they're all in the 200 range, and there's no 200 range markers in the basics. The 80 and 90 set have colors that go from single digits all the way up to like 196. And the skin tone markers are all in the 300s. So you don't have anything in the 200s yet until you get to here. So I don't know if they're looking to expand their marker lines and we're going to see more sets coming out in the 200 range or not. But I did go through and look at my swatches to see if I had anything similar. That number 231, that one is similar to Light Camel, but this definitely is darker and has a little more of a green undertone. The Rudolph Elk, definitely a green undertone, and the darks in the skin tone have more red undertones, or yellow undertones. And then if we look at the 80 and the 90 set, comparing the blues, Sky Blue is a shade lighter than Night Snow. Those would blend really good together. And I don't see a match for that blue on this set. The Chill Eve, and it might be hard to see on the, it's a little bit lighter than Cobalt Blue. It's lighter than Napoleon Blue. Yeah, that's a different shade. Then we've got Verdant Moss. Let's see, none of those greens are that yellow. Verdant Moss is like, it's very similar to number 42 Bronze Green, but a touch darker, a shade darker. Then we've got Fresh Pine, that's number 211. It's kind of similar to number 43 Deep Olive Green. Deep Olive Green looks like it might be a smidgen more gold, more darker and golder. It's kind of similar to Emerald Green, but Emerald Green has less yellow undertones. It's more of a bluey green. Bright Beacon is kind of similar to number 35, Lemon Yellow, which actually is kind of a warm, I'm surprised they call that Lemon Yellow because that's warmer. It's darker than Pastel Green, Pastel Yellow rather, but not an exact match. And then Shining Star is quite similar to Fluorescent Yellow. So let me find Fluorescent Yellow here. So Shining Star and Fluorescent Yellow. I think Shining Star is a little more fluorescent than Fluorescent Yellow, but fairly similar. Similar, but not the same. As far as the reds, the Festive Apples is such a nice deep crimson. It doesn't seem to be, like, it seems to be darker and more saturated than the other reds from either of the sets. Great Fire looks like, and great like a grate, not like it's great. It's like a grate, like in the ground, a grate, or like a trash can with a grate over it, which is like, oh, Christmas, you know. 190, that seems to also be more saturated. It would mix well with vermilion or coral red. It's kind of like a more saturated version of coral red. It's not the same as any of the reds on there. So you are getting 10 more colors, 10 more alcohol markers, and then you're getting 2 metallics. So it's a set of 12, but that's what you're getting there. I just wanted to double check that they weren't duplicates, so that way if you were interested in them, I wanted you to know whether you already have those colors or not, if you already were in this line of markers. So the next thing we're going to look at is the gouache. And Arrtx has, they have put out like the Hemi style jelly cup gouaches in the past. They're, you know, very similar to that brand. I think they might actually be the same paints, just labeled differently. And it's, I've always liked those. So this is going to be kind of similar. So it just basically depends on how you like your paint, I think, bottom line. So this is what it looks like. Now, the first thing that I did when I got these was, and I made sure to keep them flat, and I set them flat on a shelf for like a couple of weeks before I opened them, because I wanted to make sure that all the paint would be in the cup and not on the lid. But even so, the paint had fell into the lid. So the first time I used these, I just took the caps off and I worked out of the lid to clean up the lid. But I actually, when it ended up going in and washing out the lids and then wiping down the threads on the cup. This is kind of like an aluminum cup, and you really want to keep them upright. Otherwise, it's going to be really messy. So that would be my only con of this set, would be how messy they are if you're not careful to keep them flat. In fact, you might even want to stack them on a shelf just so they're like all stacked up and you can see that they're not getting tumbled around, because the threads in the inside can get real messy, and if your paint dries on those threads, you might not be able to get the cap off, and then that will just be wasted paint. So if you like the jelly gouache style, but you don't like having all of your cups open at once when you take the lid off your jelly gouache palette, I can show you. I don't have the Arrtx one right here in my studio, but I'll show you this one because I've been kind of working on this one a lot. I like the jelly gouache style because I'm kind of lazy, so I like being able to just take a lid off and have all my paints there. But you might be working with two colors and you don't like all of those being uncapped. So this is a different option, and these have been cheaper. This set has been running around $13, $14 on Amazon, and I think the jelly gouache sets have been more expensive, but then again, they might be a little bit more paint in the jelly gouache pots. You could wash these little containers out, put magnets on the back, use them for storing your craft supplies. So it's a great way that I like that you can reuse everything. You don't have plastic that you have to deal with. These tins would definitely be washable and reusable. And then the box is just like a cardboard pizza box. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave these in here or not, just because I just don't want this getting tipped up on its end. I want to kind of see those little pots of color. So big pro of this set is they include pigment information, and the only color I see that is probably going to be potentially fugitive would be the light yellow, because it uses PY1 and PY74. PY1 is not a very light fast color, so not that gouache is generally made for reproduction work, so it's probably not that big of an issue, but if you are going to paint something that you want to display, I would definitely put it behind, well, you'd want to put it behind glass anyways, because gouache is basically just opaque watercolor. You'd want to put it, mat it, and put it behind glass, but I would strongly suggest a UV glass, or even spray it with UV spray just to be on the safe side. But the other pigments look fine. White, that's a titanium white, PW6. Bright red, P254, I believe that's a pyrrole red. Prussian blue, they actually use a more stable version than what a traditional Prussian blue is. PB27, which can change color depending on its exposure to light, but then it does recharge once you put it in the dark. But they are using a phthalo blue pigment plus black to get that color. We've got ultramarine, PB29, that's customary, that's a great pigment. Violet, they have, I think that's got to be a typo. It says PO23, but it must be PV23. That's dioxazine violet, and PBK7, which is a black, which it probably doesn't have much in there because it doesn't seem desaturated. Then black is PBK7. Then we got burnt umber, that is PY42, which is like yellow ochre pigment, PR101, which is, sometimes you see burnt sienna, English red, Indian red, light red, that's the pigment they use for that. Then it's got PR254, which is that pyrrole scarlet, and then it's got PBK7. So I'm not sure why they use so many pigments to make this, but it could be, I usually don't see pigment info on a lot of gouaches, so maybe it's what they need to get that opacity, because gouache is matte and opaque. That is the big selling point with gouache. It's going to be very matte and very opaque. So you can paint on top of colored cardstock, you can paint on top of a black canvas or a black paper. Like when I did my little ornament here, I'll bring it back. When I did my ornament here, I did it on toned paper, and it's so nice and it pops because of the gouache. So yeah, very opaque. I didn't have any problems with that. Color mixing was great. So let me grab my little swatch here. I also did little blends of the alcohol markers. I wanted to try marker on this paper because a viewer asked me if this is the artboard paper from Michael's, and I had been asked if it would be okay for marker because a viewer was looking for cheap marker paper. I'm gonna say no for marker just because I got a little bit of, even though it blended on here, I got quite a bit of feathering on the edges. I think there's cheaper paper you can get that would be much better. I would go for a Bristol, or even a office supply cardstock I think would be a little bit better than this paper for marker. But this paper is great for lots of other mediums. And so what I did here, I just did the primary colors. I did the ultramarine blue, the bright red, and the light yellow just to see. Got a gorgeous orange, which is probably why they don't include an orange in this set. The purple was very muted, kind of like an eggplant color, but it does come with a violet, so that's not a big deal. The green was all right, but it does come with a more vibrant green, and obviously you could use your Prussian blue to get some more green tones as well. Ultramarine is not great for a green, but those were my most primary colors I wanted to mix. Here I just kind of I blended the colors together to make sure I wasn't going to get mud as I went around the color wheel, just to make sure the ability to mix whatever bright color you wanted was there. And then I added white in towards the center and blended it out just to see how the pastel tones looked. Everything looked great. I mixed black in with the colors, just a touch of black. The black is super strong and it really overtakes the colors, so just kind of keep that in mind. But overall, I like the set. I think this would be good for a beginner because you don't have too many extra colors to get confused by, and you definitely can do some good mixing. It's a basic mixing palette. It's not a split primary palette. The only split primary you would have would be the two blues. Oh, look at that. I've got some paint on the lid here. I can show you what I mean about it getting kind of messy. I wonder how that... Yeah, see how easy it is for the lids to get paint on them? I'll be careful to just... Well, actually, maybe I'll try to get a palette knife and scrape that back into the bottom. I think that's the big con for this set, is just that... yeah, it's just kind of messy with these lids. So keep it upright. When it comes in, you're going to have paint all over the lids, and you can either wait until you're ready to do a big painting and then just work from the lids, but you're probably going to need to wash them out. And it took me 20 minutes to wash the paint off the rims and scrape it off the lids and put it into the bottom part. So it was tedious, I have to say. It seemed like it took me a long time, but I looked at the clock, it was only 20 minutes. But the quality of the paint I think is good, and it's quite easy to work with, very smooth, lays down really well, and yeah, I recommend it, especially for the price. It's very, very affordable. The only thing that you gotta ask yourself is, are you gonna want little pots like this that have screw-on lids? That might be quite annoying to deal with. I personally, out of all the gouache formats, I like the jelly cups because I like to take that lid off, I like to work, and I like to put one lid on. But many people prefer tubes. Many people prefer, pots like this. This is kind of like how poster colors would come. So it just depends on what your preferences are. If you know you're just going to use one color at a time or a couple colors at a time, so you only want to have a couple open so they don't dry out, this is probably a great option. You're still going to need a palette, so tubes are good too. You just got to figure out what is the best format for you. Quality of the paint wise, the paint quality is good, and yeah, so just wanted to have the information there in case you're interested in this. I know sometimes these specialty paint sets come and go as well, so I just wanted to make sure I got that out to you in case it was just a one-time thing. I've generally been pretty impressed with what has come out from Arrtx, and this is no exception. So there you have it. I hope you found it helpful. Just make sure you're storing this flat. I cannot stress that enough. If you buy this to wrap it up as a gift for somebody and you give it to them, I highly recommend you tell them to go set it flat on their shelf for a bit before they try to open it, because I have a feeling it could be kind of messy. When it comes delivered to you, it's going to be bouncing around the back of a UPS truck or a postal truck, and the paint's just, you can't help it. Even keeping it flat like I have been, you still can get some stuff on the lid. So that's the only con, and the fact they use PY1, but I typically work in sketchbooks and stuff with gouache. I'm typically not hanging that on the wall, so I'm not too worried about that. These are gouache paints, like they're basically opaque watercolors, so they're traditional gouache, so I can go in there with water and I can reactivate that. So if you let it dry on your palette, you don't have to wash it away. If you still have good paint there, you can just wet it. and reactivate it. It is not an acrylic gouache. Acrylic gouache is basically matte acrylic paint, but this is a traditional gouache, so you can go back in and reactivate if you want to. That's one of the reasons I like it over acrylics. But there you have it. I hope you found that helpful. I hope that you enjoyed this review. Just keep in mind, if you're going to buy these markers, the Oros have the brush tip and the Alp have the fine tip. So you can find the one that's appropriate for what you like to do. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these product reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.